A lot of times when you're in a long-term relationship, there's a high level of having a ton of stress, a ton of anxiety. You develop a lot of times CPTSD from the abuse that happens in the toxic relationship. You'll develop a low self-esteem, a low sense of self, not know who you actually are, and continue to move forward in that relationship will produce some heavy ramifications, some being physically, mentally, emotionally, sexually, spiritually. Is it possible for narcissists to stay in a long-term relationship? What does that actually look like? Sometimes people look at me on social media or Lee Hammock, Mental Healness on social media, and be like, wait a second, you guys are narcissists and you're still with your wives. And this has been going on for a little bit. Although, what is going on? Is it possible? Is it possible to have a narcissist stay in a long-term relationship? First, we need to understand, you need to question why you're asking. What are you actually looking for to gain out of this? Are you looking for just the justification to stay in a toxic relationship? Like, is this something you're like, I hope this is going to work out. I hope this is going to be how it could happen in my relationship, and it'll start to allow you to be in a toxic relationship and to ignore the toxicity that's happening on a day-to-day basis. Like, are you trying to justify it? This is the first and foremost thing that I would kind of like push back and be like, wait a second. Before we answer these questions, question yourself, is this what's actually going on? Because you need to understand for you that the only reason you're with this person is because they're actually demonstrating the things that you want in a long-term relationship period. Now, when we talk about narcissists, a lot of times we'll talk about two different kinds, overt and covert. The grandiose, the asshole in the middle of the room, and then the covert, the vulnerable, the shy, the one that's kind of tucked over the corner, sometimes manipulating stuff, or sometimes like, hey, they don't want drama, but there's always drama around them. Like, there's different pieces of it. What we typically see is that overt narcissists typically will have a shorter lifespan of a relationship. Now, not always, but what a lot of times we notice is we see this pattern a lot of times. That an overt person will go from person to person to person much more rapidly, and a lot of times it'll speed up over a period of time. Coverts, on the other hand, or sometimes sociopaths or psychopaths, sometimes will stay in the relationship even longer. The reason why is because it's so much more subtle. You're not getting in a relationship with someone who comes across as an abusive asshole. You're getting a relationship with someone who seems loving and kind and nice, and then they slowly start to do passive-aggressive, belittling things that start to put you into a place of craziness through the gaslighting manipulation that you're like, I don't even understand how I got here. So there's a little bit of difference in nuances. So I want to answer a couple questions about this, okay? One of them is, what are some of the common traits and behaviors of narcissists that might make it difficult for them to maintain long-term relationships? Well, the number one trait for a narcissist that makes it difficult for you to stay in that relationship is honesty. Because 9 times out of 10, when you're dealing with a narcissist, you typically do not get anything that is remotely close to honesty. Anything else but honesty. A lot of times not being honest about their past, not being honest about what's currently going on right now, and not being honest about where they want to go in the future. Oftentimes I package those up in the phrase of distorting reality. Gaslighting, love bombing, and future faking. Doing anything they can to be untrue in the moment to make you feel like it's true to be able to capture you even longer. So biggest thing is honesty. I had someone ask the other day, they were like, I get honesty. How, like that needs to happen in a relationship. But what about vulnerability? What do you mean by that? Vulnerability I would view as being honesty 2.0. Like honesty of like, this happened in my past, this happened here, this is where I want to go. Okay, like there's a baseline honesty of being transparent about that. Then you have vulnerability, which I call honesty 2.0, which is more of like not just being honest about the situation, but then expressing feelings. Being vulnerable about what's actually going on inside. Not the external, not the future, the middle, the previous plans, but what's actually going on inside. This is what makes me feel. This is what I'm scared of. This is what's actually going. This is where you see narcissists engage with their emotions. Well, you would if you see them be vulnerable, okay? But with the vulnerability piece, this is where you see people engage with their emotions. That's what you're looking for. So I talk about honesty, vulnerability, and then I show consistent change. Like, how is this person changing consistently? This is the hard part with narcissists. A lot of times it's a one and done. I arrived, I made it, I caught the girl. Now I don't have to worry about it anymore. Now I can just go ahead and do whatever I want to do because I've made this relationship. We've got it done. And so when you talk about narcissists, those are some of the traits that will not make it last long term. The hard part is with gaslighting, manipulation, emotional abuse, all these different pieces to it, you'll accept it for a long period of time thinking that it's something else or not thinking that it is what it actually is. Okay, so the second question I want to be able to touch on is, are there any specific types of people or personalities that narcissists tend to be compatible with in long-term relationships? Short answer would be yes. People that give a narcissist everything they want and don't question anything that they get. Okay, basically how I normally boil that down is not empaths, is not people pleasers, is not fixers, but basically typically people who do not know who they are. Like, if you do not know who you are, you're easily molded into the version that the narcissist wants you to be. If you do not know that you're smart and confident and you're on a great trajectory, the narcissist comes in, you start to feel like, wow, I'm really dumb. I can't do this on my own. I can't figure this out, but I can with them. And you start to latch onto a different version of reality because of what you've been painted to believe by the toxic person. So a narcissist is looking for people that don't know who they are. If you don't know who you are, you don't have strong boundaries, because there's no point in boundaries, because it's nothing to define who you actually are. So as a result, you just get molded into the version that the narcissist wants you to be. This is why a lot of times narcissists love going towards younger women, because they're more naive. They haven't had life experience yet. They're able to be molded into the person, into the version that the narcissist is like, this is going to be the perfect person. Like, this is going to make them be the right person for me. This is where we're actually going to get this right engagement and love and connection that I'm looking for. We see this happen over and over. So narcissists a lot of times will stick with you for a long period of time if you don't know who you are, and they're just getting what they want. So basically, you just keep giving and giving and giving. You don't get anything in return. You just keep giving, giving, giving. A lot of times we'll see narcissists extend that relationship longer and longer because they're able to live in a way that they want. A lot of times the easiest way to say it is they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to come home to you and then go out and cheat, and then you find out about it and you still don't leave. So it's like, oh, then it's not that big of a deal. So they keep doing it over and over again. So like the type of people that narcissists will be compatible with for long-term relationships are typically the ones that won't stand up to them, that don't know who they are, that continually give them just what they want. So you have to ask yourself, is what you're doing right now, if you're giving the narcissist what they want, is that what you want to do for the rest of your life? Because if that person is not being honest, vulnerable, and showing consistent change, there's no point in moving forward in the relationship. Now, can a narcissist change their behavior and become a better partner in the long-term relationships? This is where it gets dicey, because you have narcissists that go into therapy, that start working on themselves, but you don't notice an actual change. But they say they're changing, but they talk about it, they say they're trying, and you don't see anything actually happen. Part of the thing is you have to not just go to therapy, but there has to be a level of honesty, vulnerability, and consistency that's happening on a day-to-day basis for change to actually take place. Also, a narcissist cannot go to therapy for you. If they go to therapy for you, it's not going to last long-term. We've talked to several different people that have gone through these situations. The husband's gotten to therapy, he started to work on himself, finally all of a sudden blows up, leaves, and on the way out says, I'm tired of doing life the way that you want to do it. Tired of doing it your way. And so we see this, that a lot of times narcissists will modify their behavior, will look a certain way, will try to act a certain way to keep the relationship, to stay a little bit longer. But it typically does not work because they're typically trying to change, quote unquote, for other people. That piece never works. All right, so what are the main challenges that individuals will face when they enter into long-term relationships with a narcissist? A lot of times when you're in a long-term relationship, there's a high level of having a ton of stress, a ton of anxiety. You develop a lot of times CPTSD from the abuse that happens in the toxic relationship. You'll develop a low self-esteem, a low sense of self, not know who you actually are, and continue to move forward in that relationship will produce some heavy ramifications, some being physically, mentally, emotionally, sexually, spiritually. All different pieces get affected when you're talking with a narcissist on a long-term basis, when this becomes a long-term relationship. Now, part of this still goes back to the question I asked at the beginning is, why are we asking? Why are you asking? Because you might be thinking, maybe I can make this work. You need to understand that's the wrong question. Because if you're thinking, maybe I can make this work, you're starting to think that you're in control of it. You're starting to think that you're in control of the other person's change and development. Maybe you can put this together. Maybe you can help this work. At the end of the day, that person has to make a decision. Will they actually show up? Will they actually be honest? Will they be vulnerable? Show consistent change? Will they do the work required? I did an email the other day, like talking to people saying like, hey, it's hard to be able to find anyone that wants to do the work. Survivor, thriver, narcissist, regular person, whatever you want to call them, anybody, any human, it's hard to get them to do the work because the work is hard. The work is not easy. The work is showing up every day, investing into you. And a narcissist typically doesn't want to do that. The hard part is a lot of times you're beaten down so much that you don't think you can do that. It's one of the reasons why we started to develop the 7-day challenge to help people just develop and work on themselves for 7 days straight. Some people don't even have one day they work on themselves. So we're like, hey, here's 7 days. They graduate that, they move into the 45-day challenge. We're like, here's 45 days to develop this habit. They graduate that, they move into Thriver, and we're like, hey, this is a lifestyle, a framework that we're going to give you on a daily basis to help you move forward in who you are in body, being, balance, and business, and all the different aspects of life to help you maximize your potential, maximize your growth, maximize who you are called to be. But this whole process has to come down to the fact of understanding what kind of relationship am I in? What do I actually want? A lot of times people want a connected, healthy, loving relationship. And then I ask them, are you getting that in the relationship you're currently in? They're like, no. And I'm like, based on everything that has happened and based on the communication, the connection, like the level that you've been able to get through to this person, is that something that you're going to have with this person? They're typically like, no. So you need to understand we have to get crystal clear on what you actually want. If we don't do this, you will continue to spiral over and over and over again. So when you ask yourself this question, are narcissists capable of staying in a long-term relationship? What do you actually want? Because whether that person is capable or not is not the right question. Whether that person actually is the right question. Are they being truthful? Is he demonstrating love? Is he demonstrating respect, loyalty, kindness, care, honesty over and over? Like, does this actually work this way? If it doesn't work right now, it's not going to work long term because you need to see honesty, vulnerability, and consistent change. We've been enough, kind of gone around the mulberry bush a couple times because I wanted to try to make sure you understand this. At the end of the day, that you're not justifying, yes, he said that they're capable, so you stick it out. It's not why I'm on this channel. It's not why I'm here. It's to help you move from where you are to be the person that you're called to be. If you want to do that, talking to me one-on-one, answer some questions, help you moving forward, go to rawmotivations.com, click on the one-on-ones, let's chat.